Now that we've established our connections, the next important step, in fact essential step, is to specify the buffer size of the ASIO driver that we use. Prior to showing you how to adapt the buffer size though, I'll explain why adapting it is extremely important. Actually, before I do that, let me explain why we're only seeing half of the Cubase hub that we've seen previously. Before, we saw the hub comprised of two halves. The left-hand side presented us with the latest news related to Cubase, but only when connected to the internet. Now, some people don't need or want that news information at the left. So there's an available option found in Preferences to hide it. Here's what we do. First of all, open any Cubase project to access the program in full screen, and then go to Edit up here on the menu, and then drop down to Preferences. From this Preferences panel, go to the General tab here. Make sure you're actually on General and not its subcategory, Personalization. Here you'll find this checkbox labelled Show News in Hub. With it now checked, hit the OK button and bring back the hub into view by going to Hub up here and then choosing Open Hub. And of course we now see the hub's floating panel once more with the news at the left. I'll close the hub by clicking its close down cross, and I'm going to actually switch off that hub news now. I don't really need to see it, so I'll go back to Edit and then down to Preferences once more. In the General section again, I'll uncheck here now. So now when I bring the hub back into focus, we only see the Templates and Recent Projects section. Okay, now getting back to the buffer size I mentioned earlier. Before changing it, I'll explain why adapting it is extremely important. The way that Cubase records a vocal or a guitar or a keyboard, etc., is by utilizing the input ports we set up previously so that the artist's performance enters into Cubase from the outside world. Once inside Cubase, effects can be added to help the singer hear himself and stay in tune better. These effects could be compression or auto-tune or whatever. Once that real-time processing is done during recording, to be able to hear the real-time result, the audio is then sent out of the output ports we established previously too. And of course you'll appreciate for all that to happen, time passes. It might not take long, and it is likely measured in milliseconds. Nevertheless, it does take a finite amount of time. In other words, the original signal going into Cubase, the singer singing for example, will be delayed at the output stage, albeit in milliseconds. The slight delay is known as latency. What we hear at the output stage, through monitors or headphones, will inevitably have a latency delay of a few milliseconds. If the latency is less than 8 milliseconds, it's virtually unnoticeable to our ears. However, for higher millisecond values, it becomes very off-putting. If we sing or play notes on a guitar, we expect to hear them immediately. If those notes are delayed in our ears by 25 milliseconds or more, for example, it becomes pretty much impossible to perform properly. Right, that's the theory behind the buffer size. Next, I'll show you how we change the buffer size to suit what we are doing. I'll see you in a moment.